Hello and welcome. My name is Kate Calkins, and this is my book review. The book that I have chosen is Significant Zero Heroes, Villains, and the Fight for Art and Soul in Video Games. Some information about the author and book. The book Significant Zero is by Walt Williams, and this is actually a memoir of Williams's experiences that he has had in the gaming industry, facing the challenges, conflicts, and pressures of meeting deadlines and creating innovating and artistic video games, as well as the gaming industry's addiction to violence in video games. From being discharged from the Air Force after writing satirical musings in a college newspaper to becoming a writer, Walt Williams is an award-winning game writer who worked on many beloved franchises of games such as BioShock, Star Wars Battlefront, Civilization, Borderlands, Mafia: The Darkness, and is best known for being lead writer for Spec Ops: The Line. Williams is currently living in Louisiana with his family, working as a narrative director for Insomniac Gaming Company. Significant Zero is actually his very first book, and a bit more of information on Williams can actually be found on his LinkedIn page here. With Williams's LinkedIn page, we can see that he has about 15 years of experience working with award-winning game publishers and developers. Down below here, we can see that where he actually got his education, where he has a Bachelor's of Arts in Communication and Media Studies at Baylor University. And above, we can actually see his 15 years of experience, where he's worked at 2K Games as a senior writer and others. Uh, he worked at Red Accent Studios as a senior writer slash narrative designer. He was a freelance writer, and now today as a narrative director for Insomniac Games. Two-parter of summary of books claim slash argument. In Walt Williams' book Significant Zero, he goes over the struggles, challenges, and creativity of making video games in the gaming industry, along with showing the gaming industry's addiction or rather reliance toward violence in video games. The book also speaks about the toll this takes on the ones who work in the field of making video games. Throughout the book, it talks about Williams' time in the development of the game Spec Ops: The Line. Williams talks about his life during the development, where he explains he doesn't remember what month it was. Here's what I do know: the world was gone, everything except for the 1 mile between my hotel and the recording studio had been erased. From 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., I directed audio sessions for Spec Ops. From 7 p.m. to midnight, I wrote scripts for a second game being recorded down the hall. Where this has all basically been a blur to him, Williams explains that the only way he was staying upright was a diet of Adderall, Red Bull, and cheap red wine, which was necessary to numb the pain of a bulging disc at the base of my neck. Sitting, standing, typing, they all brought pain. Williams explains that this is mainly due to him spending most of his time doing this action, which goes along with the toll that this can take on a person in this field. Williams later speaks about his boss, which he refers to as the Fox, changing the beginning of Spec Ops with a flash forward action helicopter scene that did not need to be there, and Williams calls shameless, as well as this being an idea that Williams has shut down once before in the past. Williams explains how he and his team had put months of work into the slow opening hour of the game, which Williams, an account to the industry having an addiction to violence, believes this tells the player, "We don't think you're mature enough to handle a video game that isn't all action, all the time. Have some explosions, you mouth breathing yokel. Please don't sell us back to GameStop." Part 2 of summary. In addition to the change of the game that Williams did not want to do, he made a quick script for the actors to read, giving the main character of the game a sense of deja vu. Williams, clapping back toward the email that had started this, replied that during this, everyone dies in the helicopter crash at the start of the game. Everything after that is a hallucination as we lie dying in the wreckage. As this was indeed Williams' story, even if he had to burn it down to the ground, he wouldn't let anyone take it from him. Which this is true, as being the lead writer for your own story, you aren't going to let someone change how you want it without fighting back. Target audience. Significant Zero, I believe, can actually be for many different types of readers that have an interest with video games, game development, or creative writing. This book can show those who are generally into games or the writing of stories how much time and work can go into creating these works of art, by the author using his own experience as a good example of what really goes on behind the scenes and the sort of toll one can endure to create the game they intended it to be. In this way of sharing his experience, Williams can better relate to the audience by providing an idea of what it is like working in the video game industry. The book's importance. In this book, Significant Zero, Walt Williams explains the book's importance by providing his own experience and perspective of the challenges, conflicts, and pressure that can happen in this field, along with the sort of toll that can affect a person working within the gaming industry. An important takeaway of this book is the games themselves, as they are not only for entertainment purposes, but they are also a form of art, a different way of telling a story or expressing the emotions of characters that can take a lot of time and creativity to make into a good, solid story or game, which is what Walt Williams, in his book, when he is explain or shows in his book when he is explaining his own experience on Spec Ops: The Line, where months were a blur and a diet that consisted of Adderall, Red Bull, and cheap wine to dull the pain of the bulging disc in his neck from the constant typing, sitting, and standing for months on end. Walt Williams wanted to create stories that are compelling for the ones who play them, and if we let the ones creating these stories without the challenges of conflict with upper management or the stress of a release time, we could have some better games than some of the ones that we have had throughout the past few years. Part two of the book's importance. If we don't agree, however, and meet the deadline with an unfinished story, then we could still have a decent story, but it would not meet with the writers who spent all their time and working crunching through the months creating the story that they wanted it to be. A very good example of this is Hideo Kojima's own game, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, as at the end of the game we actually realize the story isn't finished. We're hit with another act that we only get to see concept art for and a half-done ending. This is due to Kojima, however, actually being let go from the gaming company Konami. This is my works cited page, and I hope you guys enjoyed. It was fun doing this. Bye.